I wanted to create a safe space to have uncomfortable yet transformative conversations that move people, amplifying the voices of those who are underrepresented and who inspire positive change. I'm Tony Williams, and this is Brooklyn Savvy. Hi, I'm Tony Williams, and welcome to Brooklyn Savvy. I am here with Dr. Miguel Martinez-Saenz, who is the president of St. Francis College. Now, this segment is on being a savvy leader, and typically we have women that we talk to. But this guy was so savvy that I had to bring him on Brooklyn Savvy. So welcome. I can call you Miguel, right? I can call you Miguel.
And I got a female spirit, so you don't got to worry about that.
Yeah, he got plenty of that. But anyway, I wanted to talk about, first of all, St. Francis College has moved. Talk to us about what that looks like, what that feels like. What does that mean, that St. Francis has moved into a new location in downtown Brooklyn?
Yeah, look, I mean, St. Francis moved before. This isn't our first move. So, you know, sometimes people say, oh, you moved to college. It's not the first time we moved. We were in Cobble Hill, moved to Brooklyn Heights, and now we're moving to downtown Brooklyn. Part for me was when I arrived in 2017, you know, the building was in need of some love.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, you've been there.
I've been there, yes.
You've been there.
Yes, it needed some love.
It needed love and attention. And I thought to myself, look, if we're going to be about social mobility, if we're going to be about creating conditions for the underserved, we got to be in state-of-the-art environments, right? Because there's already a disadvantage, right? You know, somebody starting 10 yards behind, and then you're going to put them in a facility that's not up to the standard, you got a problem, right?
And what kind of hope are you really inspiring people, right? Right.
So for me, the idea was, how do you create conditions for folks to want to learn? Part of it is the space, right? We orient towards space. You know, you walk in somebody's apartment, it's scout floor to ceiling windows, you're like, wow, this is spectacular.
Again, inspiring,
right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, we had a building that did its job, but it was retrofitted. And I said, we need to build something for students that's educationally focused, for students, so it's custom built. So these were floor plates that, you know, we just did what we needed to do with the floor plate. So for me, that was a critical piece, right? And what we've seen in 6 weeks is that it works, right?
Absolutely. So, everyone's raving about how gorgeous this space is,
you walk in, but watch the students. What I see is you watch the students, they have shoulders back, right? They're more upright.
Right.
They're more friendly even, and our students are pretty friendly.
So it's helping with engagement,
Absolutely.
Right?
You see them all over the campus.
Right.
Right, before we had nooks and crannies. Now, right, they're all over. We have
They
high
look like
tops.
they're going to work. That's what they look like to me when I walked in here. That's what I felt.
Well, it seems like it.
Yeah.
A lot of people tell us it's like a Google campus.
That's what it feels like. Wonderful.
You know, all glass, open space. And so for me, that was critical. And so we're already seeing it. The faculty are saying they're more engaged in their classrooms. I mean, you think about what natural light does to people.
Right.
Right. There's evidence on this, right? And so, you know, you came into the space, you saw it, right? We have a cafeteria, floor to ceiling, windows. Even when it's a little dark today, it's still the light, you feel the light. We also designed the space such that the natural light comes through the building.
Absolutely.
So we don't have drywall with one door to walk into a classroom. All classrooms have a lot of glass to make sure that even if you're not bordering, right, the outside of the building, you have natural light coming through. We have massive hallways where students have couches, high tops.
It's uplifting. How's that? When I walked in here, I said, wow, what a difference, and what I feel if I was a student here.
Oh, yeah. When you walked off the elevator on 5.
Exactly.
And you walk in and you see they're driven by dream, you're like, wow, I want to be here.
Now, you said something that I picked up on. You said this was a school for the underserved, and Brooklyn Savvy wants to amplify social justice issues. So when I think of what is going on, what the issues are in getting a college education today, I think of cost, I think of debt, I think of enrollment, and I think of the value. People don't seem to necessarily value the education as much as they did in the past. So why don't we talk about how St. Francis deals with cost?
Yeah, look, first, but let's underscore something, right? The college was founded 164 years ago to provide the underserved an opportunity to get an education. In that case, it was, Franciscan brothers coming from Ireland. The Irish, as we know, were being discriminated against, and they needed a place to study. So they came in, They set up an academy to try to get them access, right? Promote social mobility. What's happened? That core mission of serving the underserved has stayed in place, right? So now what's happened? I like to say this, the hues have changed, right? So
Right,
we're
the
not
demography, yes, exactly.
We're not a predominantly white institution anymore. We're probably 65% BIPOC, right? So we're now Hispanic serving institution, which makes sense in the context of Brooklyn. What we've always said is we're gonna provide access to an affordable and quality education. And that's what we continue to push for, right? So that's critical. Why? Because if you're trying to impact the lives of individuals, right, and of their families and of their communities, right, there can't be a debt burden that's too high, right?
Right.
And you have to also understand that has to be tied to the labor market, right? So what we're seeing, nursing's, right, our fastest growing program, our pass rates are great, accounting, another job-focused program, very strong, management, strong job placement. So we're beginning to see that. In terms of what we do with, you asked about cost and tuition.
Right.
You know, look, we're a private, so we're not CUNY. So we have some families that say, no, I want to pay what I pay for CUNY. We don't have the appropriations coming from the state,
right?
So we can't do that. That said, I would imagine that we're one of, if not the most affordable private college in the area. And now with state-of-the-art facilities, I mean, this is fairly impressive. So
now, would you be considered a commuter college, or do you have, room and board? Dorms.
We do have some residence halls. We changed the nomenclature now.
It's not. It's residence halls now.
Residence.
No. What was?
No
dorms. See, once again, you date yourself. I'm dating myself.
I'm trying to help you out.
Yes, that's all right. Thank you.
So we have some beds. We don't have a lot. So we're predominantly commuter. Even some of the international students, they are in a sense commuter because they live off campus. They live in apartments and things like that. But we're predominantly commuter space. Look, our commitment, this is what we try to get families to understand from a loan perspective. And I think a lot of people are talking about $1 trillion in loans, what's happened. A lot of that market is driven by and was driven by the for-profits.
Did not realize that.
The for-profit institutions, they were very loan heavy. And then the super elite, which, people loan themselves out because they want to go to NYU or Columbia. It costs $80,000.
And you're right, loan yourself out. That's exactly
that's what they do.
That's what
right?
it is. Yes.
In our case, what we try to advise families is don't take anything more than what's subsidized by the federal government, which for an undergraduate degree is $22,000. And here's the logic, I think, right? If you go to school and you take advantage, some people come to school and they loaf. That's a different problem. That's an issue you got to deal with. But if you go to school, you take advantage of what we provide. You learn, right? You do internships, right? You take the opportunities that we provide for you and you take them seriously. And you graduate and can get gainful employment. If you have $22,000 in loans, that's a good investment.
Exactly. Right. Now talk about placement after, meaning you're saying, how is your job placement rate?
Well, those rates are tricky. So you have all these colleges say 94% job placement. Just so you know, that's hard to track. So what do? We send a bunch of surveys out.
Okay.
I mean, when your friends send a note to all your friends, hey, who's still employed? Everybody writes, I got a good job. The person that doesn't have a job doesn't write
back. Right. Well, I'm still looking.
Right, I've been employed 6 months. I can't pay my bills. Nobody writes that, right? So it's like all these colleges, 99% job placement. Really? Or graduate placement. The only people writing you back, with few exceptions, that's why everybody's like 95. Because, we got 3 or 4 people that are honest. I still don't have a job. It's like, you're not supposed to respond to the survey. So what I say is this. We provide the conditions for everybody to get employed if they do what they needed to do at the college. I feel confident about that. I mean, I just talked to a young woman, and they don't listen sometimes. This is one of the things I like about this new space.
Good.
Here, the new space, I see students over and over again. The old space, it was such a labyrinth that I would see students once and I wouldn't see them again for a year.
Right, but now you're right because the way it's configured. That's perfect.
I go downstairs, I go into the cafeteria, I see you. Today I had a young woman, Asia, who I saw 3 weeks ago. I say, what are you gonna do? Oh, I'm not sure. I said, what year are you? A senior? Are you a senior? Have you done an internship? I don't know. No, not really. What are you doing? IT? What do you can do internships in IT. Well, I'm not sure. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. I said, no, I want you to go to our IT office and I want you to shadow somebody here. It's easy to do. You come to school. Just say you want to focus. What do they do for a day?
Right.
Right? A week later, who do I see?
Did she do it?
Oh, hold on. Let me tell the story. So a week later, what happens? I'm walking down the stairs. there's my friend. She's with her 3 friends. All 4 of them were supposed to do something. I go down, I go, Asia. She goes, what? Did you go to IT? And I said, listen, you got to go to IT. What happened? What happened? I saw her today. Today I see her. I say, hey, I went.
Right.
But see, that's an opportunity that I didn't have at the other place because I wouldn't run into the people that say over and over.
Right.
Like
it's
now
that relationship.
Right.
That
I can
relationship.
check in on them.
Right.
Check in.
Because that's what it takes. You can give them a push, a nudge, because
But
you might
gotta
be what's
stay-
pushing and nudging. You
but
might be
gotta
what
stay on
is
top
doing
of
it. Right,
What I tell
exactly.
people, Tony, I say this to people, because you get to be a little older and you say, oh, when I was in college, and I always say, when you were in college, whatever you think was happening is a lie.
Isn't that the truth, though? That's when you start to feel so dated. Keep
But
going.
you weren't that mature when you were 18 years old.
No, we were all doing, right.
Right.
We were all this, like they have that What's the Matter with Kids Today. Look how old that song is, right?
Right. It's the
and
same.
we're saying the same thing.
I say to people, I wish I could have filmed you and play that thing back.
Right.
You would be that same person that
Right.
skipped your class, that didn't turn your homework in on
Right,
time.
right,
I mean, very few people go in a straight line. Right.
It's a mosaic. Miguel, it sounds as though a lot of your leadership style comes from your being so accessible to the students and your ability to connect with them and to empathize with them. Can you share a little bit more of that? Give us some examples of that, because I think our viewers will get a lot out of that aspect of your leadership toolkit.
Yeah, look, first you have to be, I always say, this isn't mine, right? This is said, MLK said it, other people said, Dorothy Day, you gotta love people to serve people.
Oh, hello,
Right?
that's a good, yes,
So,
yes.
and that means you gotta come at people in a way that they receive it. So one of the things I always tell folks is, look, these are young folks. I mean, I look very old to them, I understand, but there's a swing that you can bring to them.
Oh, you got that. You got that correct. You got that charismatic
She's
swing.
saying,
Yes, you are. You bring it. Yeah, I know what it is.
Killing me. So that's a critical piece. So one of the things, I think is important is for them to see you in the space, comfortable in the space, because sometimes people are awkward and then it's a little off-putting. They need to see you natural in the space. And so for me, I feel very comfortable across demographics, right? Which I don't know how that happened. It's not like I got training for it, but I feel very comfortable. I like the students. I like to see the students. So, they see that. They see that I'm not like,
You're authentic with it. They
with
can
it.
feel
I'm
right.
coming into the space. How you doing? Like before we moved, you could see they started panicking when if I'd get in the elevator area, they'd be like, "Oh, here he goes. He's gonna get in the elevator and start talking to me. He's gonna ask me questions," which I do, and I do it here now too. But I think that's an important piece, right? That they know you're curious. You're trying to ask something to help them, right? You're not like calling them out, right? Even though sometimes you got to call them out, right?
Right.
But that's a piece. And I'm very visible. I also have, which is tricky, Tony, here when we start talking about the way you lead, right? I'm also fairly informal in a lot of ways, which they are surprised sometimes because
Right.
they're expecting the president, oh my God, the president,
To be
oh,
stiff,
that's the president,
stiff, right,
oh my God,
right.
the president, what do we do? And I just come into them, right? Today we had African Student Association making food. I'm like, all right, serve me up, let's go. And they're like,
Serve
oh my God.
me up. See that
And
right there,
and
right
so
there.
they gave me the
Excellent.
food. I got my food, and it was a little too spicy, I gotta tell you. But that's important. The other thing that I think is important, even, and I say this in the space of teaching, they've got to realize that you consume some of the artifacts that they consume. By that I mean cultural artifacts. Like, they think you're cool when you bring something that they know, right? If you're talking about somebody, that they don't know, even let's say somebody big for us, Marvin Gaye.
Okay.
They're like,
hello.
Marvin
We liked
Gaye.
him.
Right, they're like Marvin Gaye,
Right.
right? But you say, hey, what do you think about Cardi B? Really? Is that art? But the point is that once you do that, right, it's disarming. What do they do with that? Wait a second, why is he talking about Cardi B with me?
Right.
Right? You're in. Now you're in. Now you can have a conversation about something else, right? But they have to feel that you have interest in them.
It sounds like you have a youthful spirit, though, right? I mean, is that what that
Yeah.
might be? That you're just kind of young at heart.
My
That's
wife
kind of what
says
I'm
I'm
feeling.
immature.
Oh well, that's the other side of it. It's a two-edged sword, right? So let's talk about where schools are in terms of this whole hybrid model. Because when I walk in here,
Yeah.
this looks like collaborative workspace. So how has that been operating here at St. Francis, or how do you use that model?
No, we went hybrid. We were going to go hybrid before COVID. So after COVID, everybody says they're going hybrid. They're not really going hybrid. We were already designing a hybrid structure where instead of students coming in 2 or 3 days a week for a class, they come in once a week. So we do 2-hour blocks as opposed to our 30 minutes or hour blocks. And so the idea is that they do some face-to-face. We think the interpersonal, socio-emotional development that takes place face-to-face is critically important. So like our first-year seminars are all face-to-face because we want that transition piece that's important.
Why do you say the face-to-face is really important?
Look, I mean, bottom line is we're human beings. We're tactile beings. We have senses, right? And so, yeah, there's some virtual stuff that you can do. Even now, if you're doing these virtual reality classrooms that people are designing, you're still, right? The technology is still not there.
No.
Where it feels real.
Right.
Right? You know you're in a virtual space.
You don't get the energy. You're not getting the energy. You're not getting it. Right.
Look, and I think also, you say social justice. I tell people we're talking about being of service.
Right.
I say, if you can't smell somebody, you're not close enough. They say, what? And I say, you got to get proximate to be effective. And why I say that is, you have to have a sense, and the person has to have a sense that you're not averted to them, that you are, in fact, with them. And that's another thing with the students. They see me in their spaces. They don't come to my space. I come to their space. It's one of the things I say here for the Franciscan Brothers. And I'll say this about this college. When I got here, there was zero question the doors were open. You know this. You've been here in Brooklyn longer than me. The doors were open. I said, listen, that's not sufficient. You got to go into the community. You got to let people know you care, and then you got to hold their hand and walk with them in the door.
Wow.
Because, Tony,
I like what you just said. That's so powerful. Yeah,
but
in terms of a leadership style, that's critically important. Right.
Listen, if you believe that that's not a space for you, and I say, it is, go. I'm not really sure I'm going. But if I say, Tony, give me your hand. Come on.
Oh,
I'm
wow, that
with
changes
you.
everything.
That changes everything. You're going to come into the space, and then if I tell you,
that's
you deserve to be in this space.
Right.
I deserve to be in a space. This is your space. It changes the way you orient to the space. And we have an obligation, right? I tell people here, Rob Oliva, who knows, our assistant vice president of Roman, this is a guy that we go into high school still. He's doing it. A lot of people try to go up the ranks so they don't have to go talk to the young people. Actually, I'm a president, he's an assistant vice president, and we're in a high school every single week because that's what we love to do, and the students know it right away because
they'll feel safe.
They feel it, right? And
they'll
when they
feel
come
safe,
in,
right?
You know, I had a young woman, I still remember this one, Bishop Carney, before it closed, a week before, we didn't know it was going to close, a week before it closed. Okay, this young student is a girls' school. She says to me, she comes to me, she's proud, so proud. I'm going to your college. And I say, okay, this is in the fall, right? I'm like, wow, okay. I'm thinking, we did, you know, we talked to the students, and I think, oh, we weren't that good, but okay, all right, well, I guess I blew you away. And I said, when did you decide that? And she said, I decided it last year. I said, oh, last year? She was a junior. I said, what happened last year? I went to see you speak. And I saw you speak, and I said to my mom, I'm going to that guy's college. And now you're in my high school.
Wow.
So it sends a very strong message, you know, because as leaders, a lot of times we lead at a distance. You can't lead at a distance. You have to lead proximate. You know, I tell people don't like that, right? I tell my team, you got to be proximate. You got to be in the space. I go to events. I go to basketball games, water polo, track. I get into the space. Why? And I tell my leadership team, the students know when I arrive, when I leave, they are grateful. When I first got here, I would go to a game, I'd get a bunch of gear from those teams. They were just, and I finally had to tell the AD, stop sending me gear. I don't have any more room for all the gear. But that's what I mean by the leadership, right? They know that I'm in their community, and they also know, just let me say this last thing real quick. You know, I get wound up.
I'm with you because I got something else right after.
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. They know that I experience joy with them, but I also suffer with them.
Oh, wow.
You know, they know that I feel like today I had a young woman, and she said she found me, which is weird, right? I'm the president. That's unusual. You're the president? Yeah, I need to talk to you. I said, what's going on? She says, I don't know if I can pay my tuition. I need some help.
Now, I can't solve everybody's problem.
Right.
But I can attend to you. Right? And one of the things I said, we're going to try to solve your problem. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to be honest. If I can't, I'm going to be honest.
But like
and
you
we're
said,
going to try to
figure out. To her. Wow.
I'm going to tend to
this
her.
feels like ministry in a way when I'm
That's
hearing
what it
here.
is.
I'm feeling
isn't that what it
ministry.
is?
That's what that
Isn't
is.
that-
Servant leadership is ministry. We're all ministering when we do this work.
And
when
education
we're in this
is
work.
what it is.
Ah, wow.
That's what it is.
I gotta chill. I gotta chill. What you just said. You just said. Now, I want to. Now, this leads me to something that I was reading. You have this new entrepreneurship program that you've launched. It started back in 2015 as a class. Now it's an actual program.
Yep.
But what really impressed me, yes, it's a makerspace. That's incredible. That you want to have the values of diversity, equity, embed the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion in your programming. How are you doing that? I'm hearing it, but let's talk a little bit about what that would look like.
Look, I think we do it in a variety of ways. Let me say this though, I think it's important, and I tell this to young people all the time. You want to know what I believe? What do you do? What do young people always say? Everybody, I do this in schools, I do it everywhere, and you ask. Okay. I said, listen, I got some skills. You ask me what I believe, I'll tell you what I want you to hear. You don't do that. You follow me around. You see who I'm hanging out with. You see what I'm doing. I tell you I'm committed to service. You follow me for 2 weeks and I'm not being of service. You know what? I'm not committed to service. I tell you I'm committed to these young people. You don't ever see me interacting with those young people. I'm not committed to those young people, right? It's about me. And I think this is a similar thing. We start talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. Everybody can write what they want. We got all these diversity statements, right? Post George Floyd, everybody's like, "Ooh, we value diversity."
No.
I'm watching. I'm like,
nothing's changed.
Seems fairly homogenous to me.
Right. No, what's changed?
And
what's changed?
There's talent. Talent is equally distributed,
isn't it?
right? So why can't you find talent?
Right.
Because you haven't created conditions, right, for folks to see themselves in a space. And what you got to do, we're doing entrepreneurship.
Wow.
What are the things we did? We did the Terrier Talks. We started the Terrier Talks in March of 2020. And I said this, and this may sound a little bit odd to you, maybe some of your viewers. I said, it's not gonna be called black anything. It's not gonna be called Latino anything. There are no black entrepreneurs, there are no Latino. They're entrepreneurs. They happen to be black and they happen to be Latino. Because
I'm with you.
Right? Because what I want, I say to the
you.
people, when a young person comes into the audience and there's 3 entrepreneurs and they happen to be black, I don't have to announce that.
Right.
And I want to normalize that. When you say black entrepreneur panel, you're like, oh,
this is different. This is exceptional.
I don't say men entrepreneurs, right? We do that with women too. It drives me crazy. Given what you do with women, I'm like, God, take that thing. When I've done some poetry. I'm not gonna do any today. When I've done some poetry, but when I do Maya Angelou, and I always say, that's a great American poet from St. Louis, Missouri, who happens to be a woman and happens to be black. Because she's a great American poet.
Right.
So for me, that was one of the things we did. We signaled to our students without saying anything, right? We're working with the Black Student Union and go, oh, that's why you do that? I said, of course. Now, by design, because 65% of our students are BIPOC, we have to be intentional about when we got speakers, they can't be all white. And I'm not beating up white people.
Right.
I'm just saying our students need to see themselves as leaders.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's critical. And you don't need to signal it. Because I want young women to see women entrepreneurs, and I'm just saying, this is an incredible entrepreneur that's doing some great work. And the woman sees herself there. The young woman sees, wow, that could be me.
Right.
That's a critical piece.
Because so much of it is internalized racism and internalized sexism. And the older I get, the more I see it in myself. And I want to change the way that I think and the way that I am using language so that it changes for everybody, so to speak.
Yeah, the imaginary. Listen, we're not immune to that, right? This is one I think is interesting. People think, you're not immune to the things that you're consuming, right? We consume a lot of stuff. There's an interesting thing. This is about leadership also. It's an interesting thing to think about, right? If I grab you like this, right, and pull you, you're gonna be like, get off me. Right?
Well, your hands were soft.
You're like, I didn't feel so bad. But what I'm saying is, I'm moving in your physical space. You protect your physical space.
Absolutely.
You protected your mind the same way.
Right. What are you allowing in there? Do you understand how important that is?
You got TikTok, you got Instagram, you're going like this, and you know what's happening? Right. And you're seeing images And those images are making their way into their mind, into the unconscious. I have this notion, it's a crazy notion, is there are things you don't know you know.
All the time.
And those things you don't know you know is your unconscious, and it's become a product of what you've consumed. So if you're a black man, to use that example.
Oh goodness, yes.
And you are watching TV and you're watching movies, we're starting to see some change.
But negative
And every
images.
time you see negative, right? You got a problem. We like to pretend.
Right.
We are internalizing those things, and we need to stay mindful.
But we don't. Meaning we have. So can you teach a class on that? Meaning I think no, seriously, I think that is where the rubber is meeting the road with people of color. That we've gotten all the
imposter syndrome.
Exactly. And so at what point do we help our people unpack that what really gets in their way, which is what they believe about themselves and their ability to move forward?
Listen, I think this is a big issue with, uplift. I mean, how we uplift each other. I mean, there's a Mark Morial, I imagine, the National Urban League, former mayor of New Orleans. Yeah. He's got this interesting book, Gumbo Leadership. And, he talks about, you know this expression because it's an African American thing, crabs in a barrel. Yes,
but guess what? If one really unpacks it, you realize the system almost makes you do that.
It does, and we fall prey to it.
Exactly, and we got to wake up to it.
We are suckers
got to say no
to that thing.
We go with it. We don't
love
invest.
it.
We do not invest in each other.
And
we will not invest in each other because of it.
And we want, because of internalized. This is women, people of color, the person.
Women are prey to it big time.
You have the person in authority say, "Good. I'm good," and then you leave your people behind.
Right.
And so for me,
and you don't bring anybody with you because you want to keep it for yourself.
Your own.
No good.
And so
we don't
how
need
do we
that.
begin to think about it? And that's the issue back to community. How do you get young people to understand? I have this thing, right? So it's a piece by a friend of mine. You like poetry, so I'll do this.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Go do some poetry.
So it's a piece that goes, all I got is some fish and a few loaves of bread and a whole lot of folk that got to get fed. All I got is some fish and a few loaves of bread and a whole lot of folk to feed. Right? So it's a biblical reference, right?
Right.
And if you begin to think about what happens when we orient ourselves to a world where it's okay that I got mine, that you can get yours too. Right? So the close is basically, I believe I can part the sea now and then and put it back together again. I believe I can slay a great giant dead. If I believe in my heart, I can bust him upside his head with a stone thrown from a sling that we cling from before we lost our crowns when we knew we were kings. You see, we believed in believing. We believed in belief. I believe faith comes in like a thief to knock out each of uncertainty's teeth. I believe that a faith that can get mountains up at a bed is a faith that can easily spread 2 little fish and 5 loaves of bread. You see, I believe I can fly. I believe I can soar. See me walking through that open door. I never felt so free, but who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me. And believe it or not, it's just we. And believe it or not, this fish that I got and this bread, some say is all I got, is all that we need for us to get fed and for us to feed a whole lot of folk in need. That's the orientation we need in the world.
I just got such chills on that. I'm getting real emotional. And this was such a wonderful interview. Thank you, Miguel, for sharing yourself and your school.
You're most welcome.
You know what? St. Francis has you. Thank you so much. It's been
welcome.
a pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll see you next time on Brooklyn Savvy.